this, but this is like a two-part session where we are doing the first part of it really focused on the financial piece of this whole thing, financial aid, scholarships, how to start to get your arms around ROI and budgeting, and we'll give you some resources, our kind of specifically our tool that'll make all of that very easy for you. Then after the new year is really admissions focused, where tonight we're kind of talking about, okay, parents, this is what you need to be doing right now. And then the January event is more focused on the student. Of course, parents want to be in the know too of like, look at it's January of your junior year, of your sophomore year. This is exactly where you should be. Um, so that's the deal. But for those of you who are new to us, let's do some quick introductions. My name is Matt Carpenter. I'm one of the founders here at College Aid Pro. I'm just north of Boston. I've been in this, niche space of financial aid and scholarships for my entire career. It's the only thing I know professionally here. So I share that just because I think that makes me fairly credentialed to, number one, be talking about this stuff, and number two, answer your questions. The best events we have are when we have a really engaged audience asking a lot of questions. This is an excellent opportunity. Anything that you're thinking about that's keeping you up at night, ask it. Okay, we're gonna have the answer for you. If it's sometimes we'll get questions like, which one of we're divorced, which one of us should complete the FAFSA? How should I value my business? How should I value my investment property? Those questions, we're going to say we would need more context. We need to meet with you one on one. But ask the questions. And then before we break tonight, there's going to be a couple things. Number one, we'll talk about how to, if you didn't get all your questions answered, how to interface with us beyond tonight. And number two, we're doing some really significant specials for this group, closing out the new year and getting ready to start a new year. So stick around for those specifics there. And again, that's a little bit about me as a company. We just like to consider ourselves, and we stand tall in this, a source of truth in this space. There's so much information out there. It's hard to know who to turn to. You listen to your peers that have been through this, but their experience doesn't necessarily that doesn't make their advice or recommendations right for you, right? So, anyways, we'd like to be the source of truth in this, and my partner in crime here, the fairy godmother of financial aid, Peggy Keogh, on the other side of the country, outside of Seattle. But Peggy, why don't you say hi and kick us off?
Yeah, so as Matt said, what really gets us out of bed, what we do is kind of being the source of truth, helping you navigate this journey. You guys are the beginning of the journey. And it's like we said at the beginning, kudos for being here, because the more you know and the more you understand this arena of financial aid, and then even more importantly, where you fit, it's just going to relieve stress. It's going to save you money. It's going to help with your relationship with your child as you're moving through this. Because believe me, it goes by quickly. I have twins who are long out of college at this point. So I know what it feels like to go through this and go through it times two at the same time. My background is in the financial industry. So when my kids hit high school, I kind of did this deep dive and quickly realized, hey, I want to really just focus on this piece. And so that's what I did. I started my own business, got to know the guys at CAP. A couple years in, beta tested the software, and about 3.5 years joined CAP. So this is what I do. I'm the director of education here at CAP. So we are here to give you this foundation so you understand, because there's some weird, kooky, counterintuitive things about this whole space. So you don't know what you don't know. And so we're here to help you dive in. So with that, this is us. Matt said he is one of the founders at College Aid Pro. This truly is our mission. And that second half of it, empowering you to shop smarter for college, because you truly are shopping for college, right? And there's a way to do it, just like you go car shopping, right? There's a way to do it, and there's a way to do it right, where you understand it and you understand how the colleges are working and what they're doing. So we're going to get into that more tonight. There we are, the happy couple. Everybody got an email today encouraging you to set up your free MyCap account. That's our software. Matt's going to put a link in the chat. If you didn't get a chance to do it, we can see a lot of you did, so that's great. But if you haven't had a chance to do it, click on this link and go ahead and do it. The onboarding is pretty fast. You can put up to 3 colleges in there in the free version. And don't worry if you're not totally sure of all the onboarding questions, the exact answer. Just fill it in as best you can because you can always go in on your dashboard and hit profile and update everything. So you can get in there and mess around with it. So don't worry about the inputs. If you need to go look at a tax return or something later, you can easily do that or look something up. But get that done because right now I'm going to go in and talk about financial aid and how it works. And if you have that done, you can have it open on another screen. You can actually see your family situation on your dashboard. So you can hear what I'm saying and how it works, and then say, oh, that's how it works for me at this school and this school and this school, if you have 3 schools in there. So it's pretty powerful to get you going to understand this whole kind of crazy arena. So, what is financial aid? The biggest takeaway here is that all these colleges are discounting, they're on sale, whatever you want to call it. There's this cost of attendance, which is tuition and fees, room and board, books, travel, personal expenses, the whole enchilada. As we all know, this has been going up for decades, literally for 3 decades, at a pretty nice clip. I hate to tell you that the most expensive schools for this coming, like fall 2025, so not your kids, some of them are over $100,000. This sticker price, their cost of attendance. But it doesn't really matter. It's irrelevant because the schools are discounting. It's not irrelevant if you drift and you have no idea that really the business plans these schools have, and they're all different, of how they're discounting. If you understand that and then how it works for your family, it's going to make all the difference. So, how do they lower their sticker price? So, they do it in 3 different ways. The first bucket that you see on the far left is need-based grants. So, as the name kind of hints, you've got to have need-based aid eligibility. And I will talk about that on the next slide. Some of you might be thinking, well, I don't have that. My sister didn't, so I don't. I would ask you to come with kind of take those narratives out of your head, set up your account, and start plugging in numbers because it's about numbers. Sometimes there's ways to lower certain numbers to see if you can get eligibility, but what your friends and family tell you, it's well intentioned, but quite often it's not accurate. So you want to be careful with that. But these need-based grants, they come from the federal government, your state potentially, and colleges. That most of it comes from the colleges in the form of what we call institutional grants. It's their endowment money that they're giving to your family because they think you have financial need. And so they're meeting some of that with free money, which is what you want. You want to maximize free money. The bucket, merit-based scholarships, is also free money, but it's not based on your ability to pay. It's based on your child. It's based on grades and test scores and talent and leadership, whatever it happens to be, whatever that college chooses to award and how they choose to award it. Not all schools do this. Matt's going to touch on this in a few minutes, but that's that second bucket. Again, it's endowment money. The colleges are literally trying to entice families to come, that student to come, and entice the parents to say, huh, I'm getting a $20,000 a year discount. That's pretty sweet. They're already starting the discounting even before the need-based stuff kicks in. So ideally, you're maximizing those 2 budgets because that's the free stuff. Then there's self-help. So that's loans and work study. Work study is your child gets a job. And then you can use some of that money to pay for school, whatever you decide as a family. And loans are loans. Loans aren't inherently bad. Excessive loans are bad. So that's a whole nother conversation in and of itself. But that is a way the colleges will do this when they send an award letter. They will have certain loans on there. That's discounting the cost. It's valid, but it's not as good as the free money. And you really have to look at the different loans. That's a conversation for another time. So now let's get into how they figure out if you have eligibility for need-based aid, because that's how you're going to get that first bucket on the left. So pretty simple equation. They take their cost of attendance, that sticker price that I was talking about. They subtract something called a student aid index, used to be called an expected family contribution. We thought that was going to go bye-bye. with the significant FAFSA changes that kicked in last year. And we're finding that a certain group of schools that I'll talk about in a few minutes are still using that terminology. So we put it back in. So in case you see it, it's not confusing. They both fall in this equation. What that is, it gets calculated from the financial aid forms that you're going to submit. So families, those of you, a bunch of you that said you have a class of 2026 child, that in the fall of 2025, you're going to be filling out financial aid forms. These numbers will be calculated from them. And the college says cost of attendance minus SAI, that's the need. It doesn't mean that's all you're going to pay. If you have an SAI, if you have your account open and you're looking at it, and along the top, we have both of your SAIs. If they're one's 50,000 and one's 70,000, that doesn't mean that you're going to pay 50,000. Just means that's what goes in this equation. You might pay 50, but you might be expected to pay a lot more. It depends on the school. So school costs 80,000, you have an SAI of 50, you have 30,000 of need. Again, doesn't mean some schools will swoop in and say, here's 30,000 of or almost 30,000 need-based grants. Here's a little work study. We don't do loans. They all will package it differently, but a lot of them won't meet 100% of need. And we have all that built into our software for you. If cost of attendance is 80 and you're looking at your SAIs right now and they're super high, like say they're 120,000, obviously you don't have any financial need. And some families fall in that bucket. Matt's going to hit that in a couple minutes of where you get those discounts. I think you might be able to guess based on what I've talked about so far. But let's go a little deeper on need-based aid before I kick it over to Matt. So let's talk about this SAI/EFC. How is it calculated? There's two main buckets. There's assets and there's income. And it's looked at for both the student and the parent on both sides, or parents, parents, and I'll talk about that of different family structures and how it works in a minute. The key takeaway around assets, the overarching thing to remember and jot down if you're taking notes, is non-retirement assets are what is part of the calculation, not the balance in your 401k, IRA, Roth IRA, 403b, pension. Those are all retirement accounts. I'm a financial planner by background. It's lovely if you have nice balances there. On the main financial aid form, the FAFSA, not even asked about. On the other form, they ask it, but it's not part of the equation. It's there for psychological reasons and for framing, but it's not part of the equation. The value of the assets when you're submitting forms is literally the current value, okay? So let's talk about this non-retirement bucket. As I said, it's everything but your retirement account. So that's going to include checking and savings. You have a stock portfolio, bond portfolio, CDs. If you've saved for college, in college savings accounts that are typically, it's a prepaid tuition plan or a 529. That's a non-retirement asset. It's the asset. The person that owns that asset is the owner of the 529. 529s always have an owner, then they have a beneficiary. The beneficiary is the student, right? If you're saving for your child, the beneficiary is always going to be your child. Typically, I don't think in all these years I've ever seen a student as the owner. They're never the owner. The parent is, and I'll talk about in a minute, sometimes it's not parents. But if the parent is the owner of the 529, it's an asset of the parents. That is a really important thing. That's another thing to jot down. My 529s are my asset because on the forms they're going to ask, and parental assets are assessed at a much lower rate, a little shy of 6%, versus 20 or 25% for kids. So keep that in mind. You own the 529, that's your asset. If grandma owns a 529, not in the mix because grandma's not part of the household, okay? So keep that in mind as well. If you have jointly owned accounts with your child, put that in your bucket, okay? If you happen to have, you can see the third bullet here in the blue on the right. If you happen to have an UGMA or an UTMA, this was the way you could save for a child back in the day before 529s. That is an asset of the student because you've got a custodian and then you've got the beneficiary. It's an irrevocable gift. There's reasons around it. There are strategies to get it out of the student's name. That's something we would talk to you one-on-one because there's other ramifications, tax ramifications, etc. So you want to be careful before you do that. You want to analyze if it even makes sense for your family. The last big bucket is real estate. So the primary home, which is the home you live in, if you're not renting, that equity is off the table at most schools, not all schools. And Matt will touch on this when we look at a case study in a few minutes. But any other real estate, if you have a vacation home, if you have vacant property, if you have a cabin, whatever it is, all of that is on the table. So that equity, meaning the market value minus a mortgage, a HELOC, any liens you have on that property, that's your equity. And it's really important not to overvalue. You don't want to lie, but you don't want to overvalue your real estate because that can make your SAI higher, right? Because some schools will actually look even at your primary home, they'll look at all of that as an asset to be tapped. So that's how assets work. And again, it's real time value of your assets, your current value when you're submitting the forms. Did you
Yeah,
want
and
to
let
chime
me
in,
let
Matt? I
me
saw you turned on.
yeah, let me layer on some things here because we got a decent amount of good questions as it pertains to this. Like, hey, I'm a my students in the class 27, which I've been doing now, my class in class 26, which we'll be doing now. And these are some of the things that Peg just ran through here, like things you want to be thinking about, right? Step number one is find out where your SAI is today, right? And again, you have the tool to do that right now. And then you can see how does my assets impact that, right? Okay, I know that any money in the student's name is weighed with a lot more significance than if it's money in the parent's name, right? I know that a lot of these private colleges consider home equity fair game. So you want to start to think about number one, where am I at right now? Let's answer that question. There's no reason why you can't answer that tonight. And then what can I be doing to the extent that I can control before I have to submit these financial aid applications, right? That's kind of the lens you want to be looking through today.
Yeah.
Okay.
And with
Yeah.
assets, you have time. You have time because it's the real,
Real time.
it's the current value. So, all of you have time because you don't have a current senior. So let's talk about the next piece of this, the income, completely different as far as timeline. We have something called prior year. President Obama put this into place. So obviously it's been a while. And basically, he designated this is the tax year that we're going to look at when families are submitting financial aid forms. So you can see on the slide here, the current kids in class of 2025, parents are doing the forms now. It's all about 2023. All of you 2026 parents, you are almost done with the tax year that you're going to be reporting on next fall. Class of 2027, as Matt said at the beginning, you are almost there. So it's great that you're on here. It mostly comes from your adjusted gross income. So obviously, if you have a nice job and you make a nice living, it is what it is. Like we don't have a magic wand where we can make all your income not show up on your tax return, obviously. And it's actually a good thing to make a nice living. So, count yourself blessed. There are some strategies for some people. But if you make a nice living, you make a nice living. But don't increase your adjusted gross income when you don't need to. If you have portfolios, make sure you're not creating capital gains that you don't need to. I meet people every year and there's like this huge capital gain, and they're like, I had no idea. My advisor, I sold all this stuff. Now try and minimize that. Also realize if you have stuff on the tax return, you can always appeal. And Matt's going to touch on this right at the end, but keep that in mind. I know there's people thinking, oh, well, I'm about to lose my job and 2024 was good. And I know I'm not going to have a job in 4 weeks. You're going to appeal. So don't have that cause stress. But this parental income is the biggest driver by far. The way that they calculate everything, income is looked at more heavily, and parental income is kids don't have high income, so it's not a big driver, right? And as you can see on the slide here, there's an income protection allowance for both parents and kids. The one for kids for this coming school year, the 25-26, it's over $11,000. So what that means is if your child did make tons of money, say 10 grand, which is a lot for a high school kid to make over a year, it's a wash, right? They can make up to the 11, 5, 10, and it's a wash. But just keep this in mind. It's mostly adjusted gross income. There are some add-ins called untaxed income, but they eliminated a lot of those with the new FAFSA. So now that you understand, all right, there's the income piece coming in, you're potentially looking at your dashboard, hopefully, in your MyCap account, and you are seeing, say you are seeing kind of high SAIs or really high SAIs. Matt and I have seen this thousands and thousands of times with all the families we've worked with. But you're sitting there thinking, I can't afford 80, $90,000 a year. I've got a junior and I've got a sophomore. Even if you only have one child, I can't afford it. Or on principle, I'm not paying all that money, which I totally get as a parent. I had that mindset, right? It's not worth it. I'm not paying 90,000 bucks. How do you get those discounts? That's when that second bucket on my slide, that middle bucket comes into play. And actually, kids can get need-based and merit-based scholarships. But for some families, merit money is the name of the game, and there's significant merit money out there. So I'm going to turn it over to Matt to dive into that.
Yeah, and like we always do, we get a ton of questions. What's the cutoff for income? What's the cutoff for assets? Is it even worth doing? And everybody should apply for need-based financial aid. Everybody should do the FAFSA. Even I don't care if you're a billionaire. Okay, you're still going to be entitled to some need-based financial aid programs that are worth taking advantage of, right? That again, everybody's entitled to so long as you go through the formality of completing the FAFSA. We drill down on that on a lot of our presentations, right? That's not what we're going to spend too much time on tonight. The other thing that I'll say here, though, is that a lot of these colleges, and it's the second bullet up here, if you want to be considered for merit-based scholarships, forget about your financial situation. You have to complete the financial aid applications, right? They'll basically say, I like to use NYU as an example because every year it's one of the most popular colleges in terms of applications received. They do have merit-based scholarships, but guess what? You won't be considered for them unless you do the FAFSA and the CSS profile. So not every school is like that, but there's 4,000 colleges out there, right? And NYU certainly isn't the only one that it makes you kind of jump through these hoops in order to be considered for other discounts. Said another way, if you don't just kind of ask, right, check that box to say, hey, we are asking for need-based financial aid, they're going to say, okay, these guys are totally comfortable paying full sticker price, not just for freshman year, but for all 4 years of college. Okay. That said, to Peg's point, I guarantee you there's a percentage of you that are on this call. No magic wand that Peggy can wave, I can wave, anybody can wave. We're not going to be eligible for traditional need-based grants. Okay. But we don't want to start paying $100,000 a year for college times 4 years times 3 kids or whatever it happens to be. We want to get scholarships. Now, a lot of people kind of tune out when they hear this. They go, my kid's in the middle of the class. They're a C student. No, tons of these colleges, hundreds, at least hundreds of these colleges give scholarships to every single student that's accepted. It's a part of their business model. It's a part of optics, right? It's, you know, a part of this arms race where if we at least say that we're $70,000 a year, we will appear to be a better product, right? So, anyways, the more specifically, I'm going to show you exactly how to do this in a minute here, right? When we go into the platform, but you want to know, okay, great. Colleges are going to give my kids scholarships no matter what, but which ones are going to be good fits for them? Obviously, those are the two things we need to marry. And again, I'll unpack exactly how to do that in a minute, but a couple other talking points before we do. Number one, in my experience, it is not necessarily common knowledge to parents, specifically parents that went to college, because this was not the case when they went to college. But not every college offers scholarships. And now there's about 100 colleges in the country in which scholarships do not exist there, right? Not one Ivy League college offers scholarships. Nobody at MIT is there on a scholarship. Nobody at Tufts or Bates or Bowdoin or Middlebury or Amherst or Williams, and I could go on, but you guys get the picture. About 100 colleges, scholarships do not exist there. So as we're building this list of schools, we need to know, okay, well, are the schools that we're considering, is scholarships even in play? Is it even a possibility? Okay. And the last one here, and again, this is even, unless you're a very savvy consumer in this space, or you do what we do for a living, I don't run into a lot of people that know how important it is to apply to competing colleges, right? Guys, these are multi-billion dollar businesses, right? Let's call a spade a spade. Okay. Yes, they're nonprofit institutions. Basically, that means they just don't pay taxes, right? These are very sophisticated businesses, well-oiled machines here, and they compete like any businesses do. They compete for products with their competition. What are the products? It's your students. Okay. So I mentioned I live in the Boston area here, but a million colleges around here, right? And oftentimes it'll work out. Folks will come into town and they'll say, "Hey, we were really interested in Boston University and Northeastern. Turns out we hated BU. It was just too urban for us. We fell in love with Northeastern, so we're just applying to Northeastern." And I say, "Oh, no, you're not. You're applying to BU too. I know we have no intention of going there. We're just going to use that offer for BU and we're going to go back to Northeastern. And guess what? We're going to get more money out of them." This is especially an important strategy if you're not eligible for need-based aid. It's important for everybody, right? But if you're not eligible for need-based aid, you get to go back to these colleges and go, "Look at, I don't care if I make, $20 million a year. If you can at least come close to what your competitor is offering us, I'm just going to go there," right? That may be an empty threat, but you have to create that leverage. All right, Peggy, let me get into the platform, share my screen if I could, please. So this, and again, I see most of you set up your accounts, which is awesome. So you're not you're not asking these questions. You already know what your SAI is going to be. Okay, you already know whether or not you're going to get discounts at the particular colleges that you're considering. If you haven't set up your account, do it right now. If you have, do this kind of exercise along with me. Now, before I kind of dive into the platform, and there's a few different pieces and case studies we're going to explore here, I want to call some things to your attention. Now, to further confuse you, there's two different types of SAIs. Schools that use the federal formula that only require the FAFSA, they use the federal SAI. A lot of these private colleges or some of the public Ivies use the institutional SAI. Okay. And oftentimes there's a range there. The reason being, a lot of these schools will consider home equity fair game. And if you are divorced or separated, if you're a split household family, colleges that use this model will look at both households, whereas colleges that use this model, they'll only look at one household. And there's a variation in here, hence the range. I just told you more than you need to know. I want you to focus on what are these colleges actually going to cost your family, right? Because oftentimes families that are price sensitive, they'll tell their kids, "Look, you're not applying to any of these crazy private schools, state schools only, and that's it." Well, guess what? And by the way, this is kind of a down the fairway family, average income, average assets. They own their home. This is a split household family. It's a divorced family. Okay. The Massachusetts resident. Look at the $100,000 college is going to be more affordable than the state flagship university here in Mass. Because state schools in general, they give no discounts unless you're basically above the poverty or around the poverty level, right? Or no meaningful discounts, I should say. And yeah, out of state schools aren't $100,000 a year, but damn, if you're out of state and you want to go to one of the UCs, right, you're paying the piper. And why is Boston College so much more expensive than Columbia? They, somewhat comparable institutions. And well, guess what? BC doesn't meet 100% in need. And if you own your home, they basically look at that as one big checking account. So I am telling you more than you need to know again, but you need to know what the colleges that you're considering, what are their business models? How do they operate? Are they going to give you scholarships? Are they going to give you financial aid? First thing I want to do before I show you how to find schools that are going to give your kids the most in scholarships, just put into the chat, right? I'll have you go back to the chat. Put in a college or two that you're curious about, right? Put in your kid's top choice. Put in your alma mater. Put in, a school that just like you want to see how good they are with financial aid or scholarships or bad they are. Um, okay, so if we look at Stanford here, right? I have a feeling we'll be happy with this family will be happy. Schools like this, the hard part is getting in. Once you get in, usually they make it palpable from a price standpoint, right? So it's another one of these, examples of $95,000 school or thereabouts. We're going to go there for less than we would to go to our state school and state. Why? They're incredibly generous with need-based financial aid. Baylor's a good one. So let's look at Baylor. Okay, so Very expensive school. Yes, we're getting a discount. Now, this is an interesting one. So, if I want to drill down into any college, I can see a few things. Number one, we have every single scholarship that every single college uses, and we're very good at projecting, well, how much is your kid going to get? And then you can see why we're getting a discount. So, we're going to get some need-based grants here. Why? Well, because they meet this percentage of need, and they use this formula to determine need. Why aren't we getting any merit-based scholarships? Well, here's the average GPA, here's the average test scores, and of course, we know where this student ranks within that. So again, any school you want to see what your kid, your family is going to get, put it in here. But when we go to find out who's going to give me the most in financial aid and scholarships, that's how you leverage the technology. So there's dozens of filters. I'll just pick a couple. So let's say your kid wants to go to a 4-year school. They're probably going to be more comfortable in a small setting. They want to be somewhat close to home and they want to major in um, bio. Okay. I can search any number of filters and then I can say, okay, great. Now rank order them based on who's going to give me the most in scholarships. Right. And instantaneously, we're going to do it. And maybe you didn't love Dickinson when you toured it, but guess what? They're giving you 43 grand regardless of your income. Or you're on the fence on Wheaton, guess what? They're giving us 40,000 no matter what our SAI says, okay? Or maybe your SAI was on the lower side or in the middle. Great. Rank order the schools based on who's most generous in financial aid, right? We can do that instantaneously. It's impossible to get into MIT, but here's some other colleges outstanding with need-based financial aid and maybe a little bit more realistic from an admissions standpoint. So that's what you need to be doing today. Know what your SAI is, know exactly what these colleges that you're considering are going to cost you. At least get your kind of year one knee jerks, but then Peggy's going to walk you through kind of more holistically how to look at this as a kind of 4-year investment and start thinking about ROI and versus your budget.
So do me a favor, Matt, and just click on the profile so we can go up and so when you click on my college budget, there you go. So let's talk about when you onboarded, it asked you how much can you afford for a year. So the first thing is it's going to pop that all into the parent pledged assets bucket. So one thing you want to do, if you put in 10,000 a year because you have 40,000 in a 529, makes total sense. At this point, move it up to the 529 category. And then if you're saving, like in his example, if you're saving $100 a month and it's just auto invested in the 529, put the number of months left. That's going to be different, depending on the age of your child. And then we're going to calculate that for you. So that's part of your budget. So that's a bucket. 529's prepaid tuition, pledged assets. Say my neck of the woods, you work at Microsoft and you're getting stock. When it vests, you earmark a bunch of it for your child. Whatever that is, that could be parent pledge assets, doesn't have to be in a 529. Then you, if you're married and your spouse want to start thinking about what about cash flow? And you might think, why am I doing this now? I'll do this when my kid goes to college. No, you want to think about this now. What can you afford? And that's a family decision, how stretched you want to be, how much you think you should be paying. But trust me, it's hugely beneficial if you're married to sit down and start having this conversation between the two of you. And then you can sit down when it gets closer and have the conversation with your child around, we call it the college money talk. And you talk to them about what your buckets are and you share as much as you want to share. So you got cash flow, then you have what is your child? You expect your child to have skin in the game and get a job, and then outside help. If you know there's going to be a scholarship, biggest one is usually grandparents, family members that want to help. Those are the buckets. So go ahead and tweak this once you get in the software and make sure you hit save like Matt just did. Otherwise, it's not going to capture it. So that's the first piece. Dial in your budget. Then we get to affordability. So it's great. The college wows you with a 1-year package. They don't really care if and when you retire and if it's hugely affordable. They really don't. They want you to buy their product. They want you to send your kid and they want that deposit check, right? So what you want to do is say, okay, this is a 4-year expense and hopefully only 4 years. And that's something you got to manage. I did that with my two, but that's another story. So you want to finish in 4 years. So we do that for you. We say, okay, what is this going to cost for 4 years? So we multiply the net cost by 4. We also take into account you're going to put in here that you have, say you have a junior and a sophomore in high school. We know how that's going to affect an SAI and lower it at some schools in certain years. That is all built in for example, Boston College. That's built into that 215,000 and change number because people will write and say, that's not your net cost times four. Well, first of all, we put in inflation because there has to be inflation, but we also were doing those calculations on the back end, knowing, hey, could it get cheaper for you? Could it get more expensive because you have a kid in college now and they're going to graduate in 2 years, and then all of a sudden you lose your multiple kids in college discount. That's going to all be built into that. And then you see what we do. We take your budget and it's 94.6 for this family. That's what you can bring to the table for all 4 years. Then we show you, okay, at Columbia, that's the best situation ever. You're not even spending everything that's in your budget. That's the best case. We don't see that all the time, but we do see it, right? That's the best case up to some of these, like UC Santa Barbara, not so good, right? You're bringing 95 to the table, but it costs over 300,000. This might shock you, but believe me, it's better to be looking at colleges before you visit or anything, understanding this, because you spend money, you spend time, you fall in love with the school, your child falls in love with the school, only to find out what? They're going to give us nothing. Know that ahead of time and understand it. So that's a big differentiator in what we do, in my opinion, compared to other our competitors, honestly, because we really bring it all together for you, because that's really the only way to look at this.
Yeah, and something
Oh,
that
yeah,
I
the last piece, Matt clicked on it. Then we take one more step. Then we say, all right, well, that's great. Total loans. Well, a kid looks at that and says, well, that's okay. I really want to go to XYZ and I can do it. They have no idea what loans mean. And then we show you, all right, well, if you're getting loans for the full amount, what is that going to mean over, what's your payment going to be over 10 years, over 25 years? What are you actually paying the bank? Like, it basically shows you what the bank is making, but it's order of magnitude to show, really, when I graduate, like this is a computer science kid. So look at the monthly take home pays. They're pretty decent, right? For a graduate out of college, you can look and see like 2,400 of 6,800. That's manageable, but zero at Columbia or 1340 at BC is much better, right? So it's a way to see this, and not that you throw out schools that the delta is big, but you don't end up having a list senior year where the delta is huge and you really had no idea. And Matt and I could tell you stories. I've seen that more times than I want to admit with families, and it's very stressful. It's a very hard situation to be in. So that's what we're trying to help you avoid. So let's move on here. Let's get into the nuts and bolts of these financial aid forms. You're not on top of this yet, but basically there's two forms. There's the FAFSA and there's the CSS profile. So the FAFSA this year went live December 1. Congress and Biden just signed it, passed a bill saying it will go live October 1 next year. We'll see. But that's what the law says. That's when it always goes live. So we'll keep our fingers crossed that that's going to happen. It's prior year, like we have already talked about. Key thing to keep in mind with the FAFSA is if you are divorced or separated, only one biological parent is submitting this form, and that's the custodial parent. And that is defined as the parent who provided the most financial support on a year look back from when you're submitting the form. So if you're going to submit the form on October 10th, 2025, it's a year look back from then. So if you're listening to this, you're divorced, you're like, we're 50-50. This is a massive planning opportunity. You want to figure out who that custodial parent should be, have that parent spend a little bit more on the child. You have time, right? You have time on that. That other parent, that other non-custodial parent is not in the mix on the FAFSA. If a parent is remarried, that person's financials are on the table. So keep that in mind. We have helped hundreds of families when this new rule came into effect last year to figure out how to do this so they could literally put their best foot forward on these forms and get tens of thousands of aid. Whereas if the other parent was the custodial parent, you wouldn't get it. Key thing with the FAFSA is all the people that are submitting it, the student and the parents or whoever needs to submit it. We're not going to get in the weeds on that right now. You need an FSA ID and password. And you get that. You see the URL by going to studentaid.gov. You don't need to rush and do that right now. That's just barrier to entry to get into the FAFSA. Almost every school in the country, probably could fill two hands, maybe less of schools that don't take the FAFSA. You need to submit it. Along with the FAFSA, you need to submit a second form at about 200, 250 schools. You submit that FAFSA, but they also want a second form called the CSS profile. It's administered by College Board. So if your kids have taken PSAT, SAT, AP classes, they have a login, they're familiar with College Board. That's how you get into the CSS profile. So you don't have to get IDs and passwords like the FAFSA. That goes live October 1 as well. So ideally, they're both going live together. Some key differences between the CSS profile and the FAFSA. Matt talked about this when he was showing the case study, the home you live in. And I said, most schools don't look at that. Most of the CSS profile colleges do. They literally look at it as a liquid asset, but in varying amounts. And we have that built into our software. And some schools like Columbia, like Matt showed you, they don't. That's their business plan. That's their philosophy. Massive planning opportunity if you're sitting on a lot of home equity. That could be a huge difference. If you are divorced or separated, both parents are going to be submitting forms. The custodial parent submits the CSS. The non-custodial submits what's called the non-custodial profile. They're kept private. They both go to College Board, and the colleges look at both. Some schools don't look at non-custodial parent, but most of the CSS profile schools do. Um, if you have a parent, the other parent who is off the grid, the child doesn't communicate, maybe for reasons of safety, those kind of things, there is a non-custodial waiver that gets submitted to each college. If that's applicable, I'm just planting that seed. It's well worth submitting that to the colleges. If they say, hey, we get it, we are granting you the waiver, then that parent doesn't submit. The non-custodial parent not wanting to share their information is not going to be considered a waiver eligible. Just keep that in mind. If you are a business owner, small business, bigger business, both forms are going to want to know about your business, the value of your business. Just like real estate, you don't want to overvalue your business. I just met with a mom earlier today. She told me about her business. I said, sounds to me like your business has zero resale. She said, yep, I agree. And I told her, put that on the FAFSA. She's about to submit it. She might not have come to that conclusion if we weren't talking because people feel like that's got to be wrong that I put zero. So just keep that in mind. The CSS profile is a bit of a bear to fill out. It's much, much longer than the FAFSA. But that's, high level, the two different forms that are coming down the pike. For all of you. And again, you need to submit these to be eligible for need-based aid. And as Matt said, to potentially, if your life changes, you want them on file. There's just a lot of reasons to submit them for almost every family, really. That's really our talk track. All right, I'm going to turn it back over to you, Matt.
Yeah, and this is a little bit of a teaser for our presentation after the new year when we're going to be more admissions focused. But if you guys are starting to get serious about a particular school now, like there's a clear front runner, um, you have a decision to make, right? And really that decision is early decision, okay? Now, for those of you that these are brand new terms, basically, most colleges offer three options when applying admissions wise, right? You can go early decision, early action, or regular decision. Regular decision is just kind of standard. I can apply regular decision to as many colleges as I want. The deadlines are a little bit later. Early action is closer to regular decision in that I can apply to as many colleges as that offer it. Early action. I'll have earlier deadlines, right? So I really have to get my act together. I mean, you guys, I'm sure a lot of you guys are starting to at least think about the essay and things like that now, or you should be. But you have accelerated timelines. But the benefit is you're going to find out earlier, did I get in? In most cases, you're going to find out earlier what your financial aid and scholarship package is. And there are some schools that statistics show We have a little bit better odds from both an admissions and financial standpoint if we go early action. Early decision is where all that is to say, kind of an early no-brainer to go early action. Okay, if we're prepared, if we've done our homework and started early enough in the process. Early decision is different. We are signing a binding agreement, okay, that says if we are accepted into your college, we are going there. Now you can only go early decision to one college because of that reason, very reason I just said. You're telling that you're signing that agreement saying we're pulling all our other applications. Now, you're signing this agreement A before you know whether you've been accepted, B whether you know what you're going to pay for it officially. Okay. So this is where we'll get a ton of questions. Should we go ED? And this requires some nuance, like a lot of parts of this process. But I answer it, and I think collectively as a team, we're somewhere in this camp. Everybody has their different talk track around it. But I say, look, if you're going to go ED, you have to check two big boxes with a lot of confidence. Number one, this has to be, you have to have one of these kids that this was their aha school. I have to be at this place. I am in love with this place. I know I'm going to thrive here. There's just zero hesitation. This is my dream school. Great. We checked out with a lot of confidence. Then it is your obligation to know about how much this college is going to cost you. Okay. And you have to be able to stare at that for 4 years, right? For a 4 year price and say, you know what, as a family, we can do this. Okay. If you can check both of those boxes with a ton of confidence, God bless you. You got our blessing, right? Not that you need it, of course. But if you're wavering on either of those, if there's a bunch of ambivalence on with either of those, then that probably tells us, you know what, let's just go early action. So that's how we talk about that. You're going to be hearing a lot more about this, but I think it's important to start thinking about it now for those of you that are pretty focused. I think this is the last slide before I talk about next steps here, but we plant the seed early and often. As a matter of fact, we've been doing a lot of great frontline work with it for our class 2025 families that got accepted ED in early action. Essentially, what we're talking about here is negotiating with colleges to get a better deal, to get more money. We can never use that word because that's probably the end of that negotiation. When we go back to ask a college for more money, we are appealing, okay, to be considered for more need-based and or merit-based aid. There is a method to this madness. Okay. Now, Peg and I do entire hour presentations and more on this exact part of the process because it's very complex. This is not like negotiating a better deal for the car you're going to lease or the vacation home you're going to buy. This is its own ecosystem. And like I said, even by using the word negotiation, that's going to be the end of that conversation, essentially. You have to know, should I be doing this with the admissions office, with the financial aid office? Is it both? Should this be the student having the conversation? Should it be the parents? Is it both? How does MIT have these conversations versus the University of Rhode Island versus Northwestern, right? Versus Loyola Marymount, right? Again, they are individual businesses that run their business differently. But if we are sophisticated enough in this part of the process, we will get a better deal. Okay. It's something that we love to do. It's something that we have a ton of success with, but obviously this is our first language. I just want to plant the seed with you guys to have this mentality, right? Yes, we're going off to get have this amazing college experience, but this is a business transaction. And like any big business transaction or investment, you want to have this be a part of your process to get a better deal. So I wanted to A, let you know that it exists, and B, start to plant that seed. And guess what? It starts now because you have to have these, competing colleges that you're going to be applying to. Um, so I think that's the last slide, Peggy, before I walk you through what we have here for next steps. Do I have that right? Okay, so let me share my
Go.
slide. Now, look, I'm going to walk you through how we work with families. Okay, and there's two broad buckets. We work with families through the admissions process. We work with the family through or some families only want help with the financial aid process. Some families want help with both. And I'm going to first walk you through what we call our Wake Me Up When It's Over packages. We're going to sell a couple of these at discounted rates tonight. Coupon code is going to expire tonight for those because we always hook it up for our live attendees. We always walk that walk, right? We don't discount like this anywhere except for our live registrants. Um, but I want to walk you through how we work with families. Now, some of you are DIYers, right? That's just the nature of us, right? I'm not a DIYer, okay, but I know there are DIYers. And so I'll also, after I walk through our Wake Me Up When It's Over packages quickly, I'm going to talk to you about what option we have for our DIYers. Now, just a little bit about more about us for those of you that are new. Peg and I talked about our experience, but our broader team, we've got a ton of experience between all of us. We have this kind of hive mentality we're able to tap into. So we've done this many times over with every family at, you can imagine, at every college that you've heard of. Some of the folks that are a part of our team are currently in the directors of financial aid at colleges. We got the director of financial aid at Harvard or and MIT that's a part of our team. The former director at USC, the former director at Boston University admissions, the current director of scholarships at University of Oklahoma. So we have this incredible team that even though you're working with one of us individually, we get to tap into all of the network and the experience of everybody on our team. Now, this is some data. Most people hire us. I would only hire us because I say, look, if I'm going to invest in you guys, you better save me money in this process. And that's why most people hire us. And that's why people should hire us. Okay. On average, we save families $70,000 on college. This is a data-driven number. This is something we can stand tall on. This is something that, quite frankly, this is a conservative number. Okay. But again, that is something that we can that is very much defendable. We save families a meaningful amount of time in this process. Again, here's our average over 100 hours. That's time you get back with your kid. For any families that hire us for our admission services, we are 3 times more likely to help you get into your top choice. Again, that number is supported by a lot of data. So let me quickly talk about the services that we offer for our Wake Me Up When It's Over financial aid only package. Number one, you get access. What do I mean by access? You get unlimited hours one-on-one with one of our experts from now until your kid moves into to their dorm. Doesn't matter if you're a class of 2027 or 26. If you're 25, the price is higher, right? Our prices go up when you're a senior, but I don't think there's any 25s on here tonight. But you'll see if you go on our website right now, you'll see the price is $34.99. For anybody that takes advantage of this offer tonight, you're going to get it for $1,100 less than that, right? $23.99. Okay. So unlimited hours one-on-one with our experts. What are the deliverables? Number one, we're going to help you put together that list of schools, make sure that we're applying to competing colleges. We're going to identify who's going to give you the most in financial aid, the most in scholarships that are also the best fits for your kid. We complete all the financial aid applications for you. We worry about who needs what, where, when, how. The how is the mission critical piece there, right? Think about having a great CPA, that's us. How you present your situation to these colleges will dictate the size of your discounts. We're very good at it. And then when we get the offers back, we're going to lead the charge in appealing for more money, right? We know the method to that madness, right? And we love it. And then finally, we're going to show you how to pay the bill, when to use what resources, if you need to borrow anything, how do you find the lowest rate? So at a minimum, take advantage of that, okay? Because we don't get lower than that price point. And again, you're going to get, and it is game time now, guys. Now, if you're saying, look, I don't care about the financial piece, I just want help with admissions. I look at the admission stuff as this is instead of the financial aid package is us grabbing the wheel for parent or parents, right? We're going to be the ones that say, here's who you're divorced, you're separated, here's who should complete the FAFSA. And obviously it'll be us doing it, but we'll make the recommendation for which parent it should be. Here's how you should value your business. Here's how you value your home, your property, etc. The admissions package, this is really our admissions expert grabbing the wheel for the student or with the student, right? Making sure that they are applying to schools that are the best fits for them, making sure they have that fit to major if they want to go to a school like University of Texas. You can be the valedictorian with perfect test scores, okay? But if you're not a Texas resident, you're not getting into that school and you're not getting into UT unless you have fit to major, right? We want to make sure that we nail the essay. It's more important than it ever has been ever since that Supreme Court ruling last year. You have to nail the Common App. You have to nail the supplemental apps. You have to be on track. We have to make sure that we're taking courses today that kind of are going to correlate with where we want to be when it comes to college. So we completely take that process over for you. There's 20 hours, okay, of one-on-one admissions help baked into that process. It's not unlimited, but for most families, that 20 hours will get you there. For those smaller percentage of families that you need more help, you can build in, you can go a la carte kind of after that. And then finally, a lot of families say, yeah, that's great. I need help with both, though. I need you to work with my kid and I need you to work with us financially. That's our combination package, right? So again, kind of rack rate for this is closer to 8,000 bucks but we discount it when you combine them together plus the discount. If you start early, where we're again just over 5,000 bucks. Obviously, that's a lot of money, but if you go look at anybody in this ecosystem, it's a phenomenal value. And you guys can sign up right through here. So if I click on this QR code or I click on this link, okay, it'll bring me here. I can either pay monthly. There is a finance fee if you pay monthly. So let's say you want to go one time, okay, and I go to pay. Make sure that you put the coupon code right in here. So you will add the promotion code. What was it? Cap 20, Peg? Was that what it was?
Yeah, it's cap 20. And I
Okay.
put the link to that proposal in the chat again. It's at the bottom of the chat, so you can
Okay,
click on
so there you go. Take off the 1,300 bucks and I'm off to the races. That expires tonight. Take advantage of it tonight. If you haven't had a chance to talk to your partner or your ex-partner or whatever, buy it tonight to lock it in, and then you can talk with us one-on-one tomorrow, me specifically, to make sure, just gut check, was this the right package for me? Let my ex or let my partner ask his or her questions directly to you. And again, if you find out, we got ahead of our skis, let's we'll give you a full refund, no questions asked. But I we've been saying this because it's true. This will be the best Christmas, Hanukkah, Festivus present you can buy yourself. Okay, treat yourself. All right. Obviously, nobody likes to spend time this time of year. This is an investment, and I would argue, even though it's an investment in your kids, which it is, this is an investment, in you. And give me one more second because there's one more thing that I want to show you. Um, but that's how I would look at it. And at the end of the day, guys, people that don't hire us for one of our packages on average end up paying $70,000 a year more for college, right? I don't know, Peggy. I think we shared that article internally today about a big class action lawsuits that's going against a lot of these, prestigious schools that we're on the other side of the desk from every single day because of all these parents that overpay for college because again they're kind of not in the know. And I'm glad to see that hopefully at least it's getting bad press, nothing's going to come of it, but anyways, don't
Well, and a
overpay.
big positive of the admissions and the combo is you have somebody who is really, really good. And please come on January 8th because Brian's going to be on, and he's one of them that we have on our team to sit down with your child, right? And to really talk through what matters to them, building that list, because really they want to find a school where they're going to thrive, not a school because it's on the dumb rankings. Honestly, that's going to probably break the bank for you on top of it. So, I won't get into a big soapbox on that. I will let you
It's
figure
tempting.
that
It's
out there,
tempting.
Matt.
But if you are a DIYer, right, this is an opportunity where join the club as we call it, and again, if you're somebody that would never outsource anything much, and including that would be this financial aid and admissions help that we offer, you know who you are. At least join our club. So what happens there with our MyCap premium membership is if you go to upgrade to our premium membership right now, if the internet, it's $149. If you do it through here, it's 25 bucks to get started, and then it's $9.99 a month after that. So basically 25 bucks to get started and 10 bucks a month after that. Cancel it at any time. But you get the premium access to our software, right? So for example, with the free version that most of you are on right now, you can only put 3 schools in there. You can't sort based on who's going to give you the most and financial aid and scholarships. That will allow you to do that. And you also have some other pretty nice resources in here, right? We do member only workshops every other week. We have office hours every other week. A private Facebook community, and some of these some of these things that you can't get access to, like the line by line FAFSA and CSS
And you get
video.
to watch a rock star doing the line by line
Look
FAFSA
at
and
that
CS.
babe. Look at that babe. And again, she's not just going to get you through it.
Son's that gift this holiday season.
That's right. There you go.